Welcome back to another episode of Brand New Game. If you're joining us for your first time, we are so happy to have you. And if you're a returning watcher, please keep returning because we are on a 6-0 win streak. So I am going to credit this to you. Joining us today, a lot of you probably recognize him, but let me give him a little introduction. He is a frequent TexAgs guest star. He is Burnett's best student athlete per Wikipedia, and he is a former Texas A&M quarterback. Great on the college football field, but apparently not so great in college football video games. Maybe more of that to come later. Please join me in welcoming Stephen McGee. Stephen, thank you for coming on tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll dive into that insider information I got from an unnamed source later. But before we hop into the show, we like to do a little segment that I call Off the Ledge, which is us offering unsolicited therapy advice to any Aggie who may be suffering with something we like to call battered Aggie syndrome. So I asked the people what concerns them most going into Arkansas, and fair warning, we are not responsible for any diagnoses that we give or anything that we recommend that may not actually work out in the end. But for now, we're 6-0. So going into Arkansas, 6-0 is not enough, apparently. A lot of people are still worried about this game. Being in Vietnam, obviously, that's a big one, returning there after 10-plus years. So before we get into this, I actually want to start by shouting out Marcel Reed on his deep ball to Mario Craver, because that deserves a shout out in itself, because that's been a recurring theme week after week. And I was at a bar watching the game, and as soon as he threw the ball, everyone screamed no really loudly, because I think everyone is dealing with the same trauma. But he hit Mario Craver, and I had never heard it be louder. So shout out Marcel, shout out Mario. Our first concern is the weather. Apparently we're playing in a tornado, hailstorm, rainstorm, all three in one. So I'm sure you've played in your fair share of weather. How is this going to help us?
It's a fair point, and I'm just not convinced that the weather necessarily helps anybody. I feel like they're more of a turnover-prone offense with an athletic quarterback, as are we. And so, I think our ability to run the football, hopefully, even if it's, you know, tough elements, but I think it hurts us from the aspect of if we're not getting explosive plays. I think it's a tight football game where otherwise it could be, over hopefully in the third quarter. So, you know, I, you never know. Off again, rain, whatever the situation is. I just feel like more than likely that favors Arkansas. It's a distraction, and generally speaking, it favors the underdog. It levels the playing field. I think we saw that this year with Alabama and Florida State. I think if that game doesn't have rain, I think it's a different outcome.
Mm-hmm. Which I trust this offense a lot more than I have in the past. So I figure that we can figure out a way to make this work. But again, it's Arkansas. It's the curse of Bobby Petrino, apparently, which is our second concern, that combination of Bobby and Talon Green. So what do we need to do there to ease our worries a little bit?
Yeah, athletic quarterbacks are always a problem, and when you allow them to get out of the pocket and they want to make plays with their legs, that's where they're most comfortable. They want to get outside. They don't want to make plays on time and in the pocket. So to me, the ingredient for success on defense has got to be uh, making him get the football out of his hands quickly, make quick decisions in tight window throws, man-to-man coverage, and then bring pressure. And then when you bring pressure, the scary thing is that you've got to be sound in your rush lanes, because he's going to be looking to take off running and evade the pressure, which can lead to huge negative plays like sack fumbles. But if he escapes, it's a long day in the office when you're playing man-to-man coverage and you don't get home.
Well, certainly trust this defense. I just said I trust the offense. I trust the defense more. So we'll get into Bobby and Talon Green a little bit more later, because that's going to be the story of their offense for sure. But hopefully that eased y'all's worries a little bit, or you can only do so much. The game plays on Saturday. Until then, We can talk a little bit about what happened in the Florida game, a little bit closer than we wanted in the beginning, probably. But everyone knows and loves Mike Elco's second half adjustments. I know we were a little bit unprepared for RPO, but I mean, DJ Lagway is a good quarterback. I got to give him some credit. So, with that, I think the big story of this year has been us playing in the trenches, especially with how close the SEC is as a whole. As more dominant teams like Alabama and Georgia, these are every down to the NFL. I think there's a lot more similarities in both teams. So, how have you seen both sides of the ball, both sides of the line, improve from last year and just improve over this year as a whole? Because we saw a lot of issues, I think, the first 3 games on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think to be a good football team, you gotta win the line of scrimmage. Starts up front. Everybody feeds off. You can't have great wide receivers or a great quarterback without having a good offensive line first. So their play really dictates the level of play that other guys have. I think the same truth is on defense as well. The two most important guys are obviously your quarterback and the guy that gets after the quarterback, i.e. the DN. And so Cassius Howe has really emerged to be that disruptor on the defensive line that can go get the quarterback and the guy you feel like can get home without a lot of pressure. But then, last week we saw Hayes step up as well. He's a big transfer and made some big time plays. And so getting after the quarterback is always important. But when you're playing in this football conference and any team can beat you in any given week, you got to have consistent pressure up front. Guys that can, obviously rush, but then also be good against the run game as well. Offensive line, it's always a good thing when it's really quiet. You're not hearing a lot. And that means that your quarterback's staying on his feet. Protection's been really, really good. I think it has, which you would expect from a veteran group. And, we've run the ball consistently well. So there's just not a lot of negative to say right now with that offensive line. They're playing at a very high level. And I think as far as they take us, our offense will go.
Yeah, I mean, both sides of the ball. I know our defense was talked about to see a drop off just because of the talent that we lost. And on the offensive side of the ball, Marcel's ceiling was only going to be as high as the offensive line. So, up until this point, I feel like we have exceeded expectations on both sides. Again, there's a lot of football to be played. But going on our first SEC road game, anything is up for grabs. We don't have Le'Veon Moss anymore. So how do you expect that offense to look without our true RB1? And it's also limited due to the rain and what Colin Klein may have up his sleeve.
Yeah, it's you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have said not having Le'Veon Moss is a real bad omen for the rest of the year. Uh, I think that we're in a different situation now than we were 3 weeks ago. I think Ruben Owens really proved himself a couple of weeks ago with 140 yards rushing, and he's a game changer. I think he's a guy who can get it done on all 3 downs. Amari Daniels is a very dependable guy. I think he's the guy they feel probably most comfortable with on 3rd downs. A guy that can go in there and pass protect and know and where to block. And then the guy that everyone's been raving about for the last 6 months is Morrow out of the backfield, young guy, and you started to see some of those flashes. So fortunately for this football team is you hate to lose guys, but if you're going to lose a guy at a certain position group, I think running back is one that you would prefer just because there's so much depth. Le'Veon Moss is an elite football player, and he's probably my favorite football player, to be honest with you. He's just a dog, but he'll be back. I think probably looking at Sanford or South Carolina, hopefully. But those ankle injuries are tough when you're a running back.
Yeah, we are very blessed to not be in the situation we were last year. Playing South Carolina, you could easily tell how much the offense was impacted by Le'Veon Moss because we really didn't have a vertical threat. Now, I'd say we're pretty equal on all sides of the ball. Marcel has probably 3 options: his legs, his running backs, and his wide receivers. And he also has a great tight end room that we haven't seen used probably since 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
But with Marcel, it's interesting because at the beginning of the season, everyone would have touted him as a dual threat quarterback. But I was watching Cole Kublik, and he was saying that Elko and Klein both told him that they want Marcel to be a pocket passer, which is interesting to me. I understand from a perspective of we know we have a strong run game. We want to see those outside threats be used more. But what is your initial reaction to that? I know you have a little experience being used as a quarterback that might not fit the system so well.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I think that any coach is going to say something similar to those lines. I think the intent, though, is to say they want their quarterback to be able to win from the pocket, not to say confine him to the pocket, be just a pocket passer. I think that they would fully recognize that his athleticism is an important part of his game, and RPOs, quarterback counter, and then just on a pass play when it breaks down, being able to escape and get yards and turn it into a positive play. Those are all really great attributes that are hard to coach against. And I don't think they would ever want to take that away. But I think what they're saying is there's a lot of opportunity, especially when you have two really big time playmakers outside, to get the ball out of your hands quickly and accurately. And those guys can do a lot of else, screen passes. So, look, I think that he's come a long way. The good news is for Aggie fans is that he's got a lot more that he could improve on. And, if he plays at a high level, there's a good chance that we win out, right? I mean, assuming we stay healthy at a lot of positions. If he plays so-so, there's going to be some games on the schedule where you could potentially get out quarterbacked and drop one or two. So I think the run for this football team is going to hinge on his shoulders, as it always does when it gets down to the nitty gritty.
Right. Yeah, I see a significant improvement from last year to this year. Obviously, and we all know his ceiling has not been reached yet, which is a very good thing because he's been playing well. Obviously, we can ask more of him, and I'm sure he asks a lot more of himself. So we'll see how that continues. I'm not going to hinge this performance against Arkansas as highly as the others, considering the outside factors. But the other good thing is that we have potentially what some may call a wrecking crew. That's still up for debate. You can kind of argue with that amongst yourselves. But I think all of the outside sources saying it's going to be a drop off, and then seeing pretty much a brand new defensive line. I mean, Cassius Howell, Deion Hayes, Damian Sanford, you just mentioned. Like, what does that tell you about the character? Seeing these guys step up. I mean, Damian Sanford was the one who stepped up when Scooby got injured. Cassius Howell waited his turn. What does that tell you, especially since it's Mike Elco led, just about the overall culture and character of these guys?
Yeah, it's so important that you can win football games in different ways, complementary football, or as you have to say on the golf course, brother-in-law. When offense is struggling, your defense picks it up, and I think we've seen that, in timely fashion too. Early in the quarter, it was the offense, and then the defense stepped up and made plays late and won that game. And you could Notre Dame defense was not very good. I think there's a lot of question marks for the first couple of weeks that maybe our defense is still a lot of the same. Guys missing tackles and just not playing at a very high level. But the last 3 weeks, I would define it very much as wrecking crew standards. Damian Sanford's been phenomenal. He's been one of the new bright spots. They've held these, 2 consecutive weeks. They had, 160 yards of offense and 200 yards of offense, which a good chunk of that came on the game and some junk situations. So, man, I think that they played at a championship level. They're going to get tested, though. I mean, that's the important thing. It's one thing to do it at home, 3 weeks, but it's another thing to go on the road against Arkansas, Missouri, and LSU and carry that same moniker they played with. But I think the key to the whole thing is Mike Elco. I mean, that's the biggest difference between what we've seen, not just from last year, but in previous years as well. Mike Elco has a lot of substance to him and the ability to put his team in a good position defensively. The X's and O scheme is what's been a big difference maker, in my opinion. You can see it on third downs, especially. It's hard on first and second down to get really creative because you got to respect the run game. But when they're in a passing situation and you're playing against Mike Elco, watch out because he'll find a way to get home. And he's done it every week. I mean, you saw it last week against Florida with sack fumbles. So he's as good as they come on the defensive side. He's a great head coach as well.
Yeah, I mean, 2 of 34 on third down is certainly something to write home about. We talked about this the first 3 games, 40+ points. Obviously, you can't expect your offense to do that every game. And so, in the same vein, I'm not going to expect our defense to limit an SEC offense to 1 or less third downs per game. So, as great as it is, I am not going to throw a fit if that trend doesn't necessarily continue as much as I would love it to. But going into Arkansas, I would argue this is probably the best offense we have faced to this point. Mostly carried on the shoulders of Talon Green, obviously. And given what we know about this offense, it'll probably be a battle of explosive plays and who can limit the other more. So, kind of two sides of the coin there. What are you expecting from their offense? And then what are you expecting from our offense?
Honestly, I haven't watched a whole lot of Arkansas, but the times I do see different clips, it's a lot of good and a lot of bad. It's a lot of highs and lows. There's not a lot of consistency, and so I think for us to win, it's good. The most important stat in football is always going to be the turnover battle. Go on the road, protecting the football, the wet environment. That's very important, and so I think as long as we protect football, I think we'll get after their quarterback and get sack fumbles. He'll make some bad decisions in the pass game, and I could see that being a difference maker. And then explosive plays, right? So, second most important stat is explosive plays on offense, and I don't know. This is going to be interesting in the wet environment. How are we able to get those explosives? Marcel's not a big guy. I don't imagine he has very big hands. Football is going to be tough to get out. We saw it last year against University of Massachusetts at Kyle Field. Our quarterbacks really struggled to hold the football, and it was like 14-7 in the fourth quarter. So, I can't understate how important the weather will be.
Right. I think it helps a little bit that Arkansas is dead last in the SEC in defense. So, again, the rain is going to throw a wrench in all of our plans. But I think from a defensive side of the ball, there's two sides of the coin, right? What do we want to see from our weapons? Are we just going to kind of run out the clock? Because I think clock management is something that we lack severely under Jimbo and something that we've done super well, especially against Florida. I mean, an 8-minute drive is no easy feat in the SEC, so I trust our game plan there. But just overall, what are you expecting this game to look like, score-wise, kind of style-wise?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's so hard to predict that, but I could see it being a four-quarter football game. I think it'll be tougher than what people would expect. I know Arkansas is not very good, but it's a team that's been pretty beat up. Their backs against the wall. They're going to be playing free, and I would expect them to give us a good shot. They always play us tight. These football games are always 4 quarters. In their place, I don't know, 24-14. I don't. It's hard to say with the weather. I don't know how much of an effect it's going to have on our offense. Maybe we just pound the football and get points and use a lot of the RPO screen game. I don't know. It's so difficult. I would say that their offense will probably have a hard time, but their quarterback can make some plays with his legs, and it's always a problem. So I don't know. Let's go with 24-14.
Okay, we can work with that. In another circumstance, I would expect this to be a high-scoring game similar to Notre Dame. Maybe not
Yeah.
so much scoring from them, but again, it's in Vietnam, it's rainy, it's Bobby Petrino. There's a lot of factors, but I don't think not anyone, I'm sure there were some optimistic people out there, but a lot of us did not expect to be going into this game 6-0. What do you kind of see from the way you predicted this whole season to go, floor, ceiling? How has that changed for you now?
Well, I predicted 8-4, 7-5, and so you know that means we can beat Sanford and go 1-4 in SEC games, and we're hitting 8-4. So I feel likely. I feel good about us hitting that. I don't know, 9-3, still solid finish, but I think from a lot of people's standards, they would say it's a little disappointing given where we are and the level we played to date. But I think it's very likely we're going to drop one or two games here on this road stretch. It's tough in the SEC. LSU's tough. Texas is going to be tough. I think they're a team that's going to get better, and
Yeah.
so I think that they've exceeded a lot of expectations. I think this is a good year to be really good because the schedule is pretty favorable. Uh, it doesn't matter though who you're playing; it's going to be tough in the SEC every week, and so the challenges will persist. And going on the road will make it even tougher. So, look, I think 10-2 is very likely. I think that would be my base case right now. But heck, I'm the guy that said 8-4 not long ago.
Well, you're pretty much the rest of the entire country, so it's not far off to imagine that that could happen again. Would you say it's crazy if someone at this point predicted us to go undefeated?
It's not crazy at all. I mean, we have we have all the DNA to be an undefeated team. I think like I said, every team on the schedule we can beat, and I think we can beat them. And I think we can feel like we could beat them for 4 quarters. There's not a single game this year where like Auburn, and we all those games we were in control the whole time. Florida, we were the better team for 4 quarters. So um, I think they can go 12-0. I think it's going to be a challenge because it's going to require them to play, complete football, offense, defense, and play at a high level for 4 quarters. Not impossible. Good news is with the current playoff system that I think one or two losses still get you in.
Yes, there's a little more flexibility, and I would have called myself crazy to predict 12-0, but I don't. I'm not going to say anything. I'm gonna predict we come out of Arkansas with a win, and I'm gonna say we aren't going to cover because every game I've said we haven't covered, we've covered. So I'm just going to keep the train rolling there.
What
But
is the what's the
what
line?
last I saw was 7.5.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. 7.5 is a tough line. Mm,
It's a win-win for me. We either cover and I'm right. No, we cover and I'm wrong, or we don't cover and I'm right. But
there you
covering
go.
means we win by more than 7.5. So it's an easy strategy for me because I'm not putting money on it.
Yeah.
So we'll stick with that. But to wrap up the football part of this, our shining star of the week, that's my little MVP. We mentioned him earlier, Jamarian Morrow. He scored his first collegiate touchdown as a true freshman, so I'm very excited for him. Unfortunately, he will be getting more touches because of Le'Veon Moss' injury, but I am not worried that he will continue to make an impact, him coupled with Ruben Owens. So I'm very excited to see how Klein configures that while we wait for Moss to heal. He's very shifty, similar to Owens. I think Moss is our guy to go run up the middle, kind of run through your face, but Morrow's a lot more of a shifty guy, can run on the outside. I mean, we saw the play he had against Florida, so we will see how that works out for upcoming games, but very excited for him and his career here. But a little bit of personal. So I mentioned earlier that you are not so stout in college football video games. Do you care to share that story with us?
Yeah, sometimes you get invited into a knife battle without knives, and that's what happened that day. Little Texas versus A&M online video game contest, and it was clear who had not been playing a lot of video games. I think it was, I don't know, it was a lot to little, 62-0. I think I had eight possessions, and all of them ended in an interception. So I don't know. I Not a lot of
Who
good
were
answers
you
there.
up against?
A lot of pushing of the wrong buttons for sure.
Who were you paired up against?
Um, the linebacker from Texas. Geez, I just drew a blank on his name. I feel bad. Okay.
That's fine. It's a nameless. We don't need to add fuel to the fire.
I know. It's a
You,
little sour point for me for sure.
you can't be great at everything. Some things you just have to give up, and that's okay.
Yeah,
But
I definitely not good at that one.
and that's okay. We don't need to be great at everything. We can leave the football. We can leave the video games to the younger kids.
I'm
They
going
will have
to.
it figured out.
I'm gonna take that advice for sure.
Yeah, no, don't even worry about it. But you've played a lot of football. You grew up in Vernon, and you came to A&M, and then you played in the NFL, and you spent a lot of time playing football. What brought you to A&M, and what is your favorite memory from your time there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, grew up in small town Texas. I think they're um, recruited, made a big deal, to get me to come here, and kind of went all in on that. So felt at home here at A&M, and it was a great decision. I know it didn't work out in the field. We were never very good, but it's still a decision I would change. And A&M is a special place, and you're well aware of that. So uh, it's hindsight's always 2020, but in this case, I still make the same decision.
I would over and over. So we recommend that choose fully getting yourself, which we appreciate so much. But now that you're in football, you're not at two. You had two at home. Because last time I talked to you, you only had one girl, and now you have two. So I'm kind of wondering, what does football look like in your household? I know for me, my dad will deny this, but he wanted a boy first. So I became the boy, and now here I am talking about football on a weekly basis. What does that look like for you? How's it at home, raising two kiddos?
Kids are great. Um, I don't think my daughter's going to take to football. It's a lot of Paw Patrol right now. My son is he. All I know is he eats a lot, drinks a lot of milk. So he's a big kid. I hopefully he likes football. It'd be a awkward Saturday afternoon if there's not a football game on in our house. He don't like it, so he's. I'm hoping he'll gravitate toward. I know my daughter's not, so somebody in the house is going to have to enjoy watching football with dad. Hopefully,
No, we can certainly find one of them. I feel like you can make it work. It's way too deeply enrooted in your blood for it not to.
yeah.
But like you said, small town Texas, you're at A&M. The thing is, a lot of people that watch this show and a lot of people that I see on A&M Twitter follow A&M because this is where they chose to go to school. So they didn't grow up following it like I did. And so they are very freshly new to this whole BAS thing, which I am trying to get rid of because there are way too many people in national media and the outside world that are doubting A&M. So why would I add fuel to the fire? There are plenty of people doing it for me. What is your BAS cure? I mean, you predicted 8-4, so it's kind of unconsciously rooted in you too, I know. But if you had to give some advice to our freshly new Aggies who are in for a wild ride, what would it be?
Uh, Look, it's. I think everyone. The only cure for battered Aggie syndrome is for them to go out and make it to the college football playoff. It's impossible. So I would say winning is the cure. It cures a lot of things, but uh, Mike Elco is probably the one reason why I feel really good about us overcoming battered Aggie syndrome. I think he's got us going in the right direction, and so um, it's tough being an Aggie, and hopefully this year's different.
We're all praying that it's different, and if it's not, it's nothing we haven't experienced before. So we will unfortunately be prepared for anything, but it's going to sound silly, and anyone who's not Aggie is just going to shout at me if I say that this team is different. But I really do think this team is different, and they have yet to prove me otherwise. So I hope they don't prove me otherwise. But I brought up your time at A&M, and then I had a question that I glanced over. This is just a personal curiosity question. Tell me what was going through your mind and how you recovered from Nebraska 2007.
Uh, Surprised at how many times he kept calling the same play and involved me having to run the football. Ended that game with shoulder surgery for sure. So
Yeah,
uh, unfortunately, that was a long day at the office, but uh, it was a painful one too. I'll say.
because I watched a little bit of film and I just recapped that game just to refresh myself. 35 carries, which is more than any of our running backs have had in a single game. So probably not the greatest sign in the world when your quarterback is running more times than Amari Daniels has this entire season. So
Yeah, it's not a good thing, is it?
shoulder surgery is probably the good end of that stick, I would assume.
Yeah, could have been worse for sure.
But That's really all I've got for you today. I don't want to keep you too long. You are on TexAgs every week, so people can find you there for sure. You and your bestie Ryan spoke. So that
Yes.
is a good little segment if you want more Aggie football. If you just can't get enough because you're addicted, like so many of us are, find him on there every week. I don't know which days exactly. I feel like you're there all the time, anytime I pop in.
Yep.
But just take your luck of the draw. If you turn it on, he's probably on there. If not, very easy to find. But he's living his life in College Station, doing all good things, raising two great kiddos. And we are so happy to have him still be so involved with A&M and for him to join our show tonight. So with all that being said, thank you so much for hopping on tonight.
Oh, thank you, Avery. Enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you have a great night. Everyone who's
You too.
watching, happy to see y'all on Saturday. Beat the hell out of Arkansas. Gig 'em.